And what we're talking about today is particularly in long-term storage fees and also the automatic settings that Amazon provides to help you avoid ever paying a long-term storage fee. So to kick this off, let's talk about what are long-term storage fees. So as FBA has gained popularity, Amazon has really had a fighting battle to keep space available in warehouses. There's just so many independent sellers out there that are sending items into Amazon that they can't build warehouses fast enough to hide it or to house it all. So over the years, back when FBA first started, it was a free-for-all. You could send in as much as you want. Amazon wasn't going to say anything, blah, blah, blah. But as it has gained popularity, they've had to put in restrictions to kind of control the amount of stuff coming in and getting older stuff out so they have room for new stuff. So, just kind of optimizing the use of their warehouse space. And so that's where long-term storage fees came in. So basically, in Amazon's ideal world, they want you to just send in enough product to last you 30 days. So basically, you send in 100 units, 30 days later, those 100 units should be gone. As a bookseller, that is virtually impossible to do. I do not know a single bookseller that has a business model that can achieve that. If you are one of them out there, congratulations, you are a superhero, because it is a very hard thing to accomplish. And you should, if you are not one of them, or if you're first getting started into bookselling, don't be alarmed by that. That's perfectly normal for this industry. Books are very long tail items, which means they take time to sell. And you should buy a book with the expectation that it could take up to 6 months, 12 months to sell. It's just a matter of fact. So not all books are going to take that long. Some of the books you'll buy, you'll list, and they'll sell immediately. But it is a very long tail game, which means that there is a lot of buy and hold in the book industry. So with that said, these long-term storage fees are something that you cannot avoid. They're going to be a part of your business because of the fact that come 6-12 months and some of these items come up for long-term storage fee, I promise you that you will have items there, and you have to make a decision to either keep it in the warehouse, pay that fee, remove the item and have it shipped back to you, pay a massive fee to have it returned to you, or to just let Amazon dispose of or liquidate the item, which if they liquidate the item, it typically costs you nothing. If they dispose of it, the fee is actually pretty substantial. But if you set this up properly, most of the time they end up liquidating most of your inventory, so the fees end up becoming very minimal. How do I configure this? So we're going to go back to something I've preached on this podcast a lot, and that is that I'm a lazy seller, and I build into my margins the fact that I know that a certain amount of books are going to get thrown away after 6 to 12 months. So I don't worry about these items. I simply set them up to be liquidated and disposed. I never see the items. I never have to deal with the items. I even go as far as I very rarely even look at the reports to see how many items are actually getting thrown away. Because it's just one of those things where if you look at it, you're going to be like, ugh. And who cares? If your business is working, if you throw a couple books away, what does it matter? So to start out with, what I highly, highly recommend every seller go in and at least configure the two settings that we're going to be talking about. You do not necessarily need to configure them the way I do, because I know a lot of people out there are going to be like, I'm not throwing away inventory I paid good money for. I could get that back and I could sell it on eBay or whatever. And I'm not knocking that philosophy. If that's what you want to do, that's perfectly fine. You can do that. Me personally, I will tell you that try it for a little while. You might find out that it's probably just not worth the time and the expense to do that. Sometimes it's just better to let things go, but you as a business owner have that freedom to do this. So do it whatever way you choose to do it. So choose the way you want to do it. I'm just telling you which way I do it. So how do we want to what are our options to configure this? So first of all, let's start. There's two different settings. There's unfulfillable removal settings, and then there's fulfillable removal settings. Unfulfillable is if somebody returns an item and and it gets back to the warehouse. Amazon deems it as unsellable, so that it just kind of goes into a holding pattern until you do something with it. It just sits there. Amazon will not put it up for sale. It just sits there in an unfulfilled status until you remove it. And so with those, you can set up a setting. Unfortunately, because they're unfulfillable, Amazon will not allow you to liquidate those items. So you only have two options in that scenario. And you can either dispose of them or you can have them returned. At this point in time, I think I currently set mine up to just dispose of the items. I believe the fees to dispose of an item are the same as the fees to have them returned. So if you're willing to have all these books come back to you, more than likely 98% of them you will still be able to sell. Because in my experience, very rarely is an unfulfillable item, especially when you're selling a used book, ever an item is returned that is not still sellable, so to speak. More or less, Amazon is just probably every book that comes back is they're just putting it unfulfillable because I get books back all the time. I look at them and I say, there's nothing wrong with this book. But the customer said something was wrong with it, and that's probably just the customer having buyer's remorse or something like that, and not wanting the book anymore, or starting to read the book and not enjoying it. So they just return it and say that it was defective. But really, it's just they just didn't want to pay the return shipping for the item they purchased. So it's up to you on this one, how you want to do that one. You can either return or dispose of them. The fees will be the same. Don't get too worried about this. In the used book sector, you do not get a large amount of returns. So this is not going to be a huge expense for you. But just choose whichever one you want to do. If you want to deal with the returns and reprocessing them, you can. Otherwise, I would recommend just putting that to dispose, which is what I do. And that's just because of that. I actually do that because back in the day, it used to be very affordable to dispose of the items, much more affordable than having them returned. But Amazon has changed the policies to the point now where it doesn't matter anymore. But the big one you want to do focus on is the Amazon fulfillable inventory settings. So with this one, these are the ones that are coming up to that date where there's going to be long-term storage fees charged on them. And you do want to have these set, because if you do not set this yourself, if you do not set this for automatic removal, what's going to happen is you will be charged these fees. They will, I believe they typically send out an email and say, hey, we're about to charge long-term storage fees. If you want to avoid them, do something with your inventory. But this is just a safe gap to make sure that you never, if you don't set this up, you have to know to go in there every month and check to see, make sure nothing's going to get charged long-term storage fees. Get the stuff out or do whatever you need to do to get with it. So that's why I recommend just set it up this way so that you never incur these fees. Unless you just decide that in your business, you're just going to accrue fees and keep everything in until it sells. I personally can't really give you an idea if that's a good move because I've never tried that personally myself. I imagine that the fees would just pretty much drown your business. But maybe you will find that maybe the long-term storage fees are so minimal that your business can just keep rocking through as you want. I do feel like having a mechanism to get rid of some of this stuff is probably a good thing, especially since if you're focusing on FBA, this is a great way to try and get rid of what I quote unquote call dead weight. And dead weight is just stuff that, again, as a bookseller, you're going to strike out sometimes. For some reason, some book you purchased just wasn't the right buy and you're not going to be able to sell it. And it's always healthy within any business to get rid of some of that dead weight, get it out of there, give you more room to enable you to put in fresher, newer, better selling inventory. And this is especially important with FBA because FBA, you're limited on space. You can't just keep whatever you want. They're going to say, no, you're limited to this amount of space. So at certain points in time in your business, you're going to want to clear space out. And this is a great way to do it. And it's completely automated. So it's hands off and things are going away. opening space up for you at all times.